Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Hope you're all doing well. Mikey, Stafford and Rory O'Neill with you to go back on our first double weekend of the Allianz League. Hurling later with former Tipperary midfielder Shane McGrath, but right now we have Peter Canavan. How are you doing, Peter?
Hi, Mikey. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Peter's going to talk about the football, by the way, not the hurling, in case anybody's just getting confused there. That's Peter's here.
Good hurler in his day too, I think, Peter, were you?
Said a wee bit, Rory, thanks.
You did.
You remember that?
Yeah.
We've got Eamon Fitzmaurice, so we've got a few football pundits who could double up when we're in a pinch, Rory. Right, lads, it was an eventful weekend across the 4 divisions. We won't obviously be able to talk about all 16 games. We'll focus on a couple of Division 1 and Division 2 games. Before I forget, because I will forget, shout out to Andy Moran's Leitrim, who are the top scorers in all 4 divisions, and Keith Byrne, who has scored the not insignificant total of 217 in 2 games, which is fair going. Leitrim are going well. I'll stop looking at Division 4 now because Wexford lost their first 2 games, so that's the last that I'll know of. No, so just
they can't be relegated anyway, Mike.
No, that's true. That's the one comfort we've had for a few seasons now. Things we've reached the bottom. Yeah. There's no false floors. No, looking up much higher, about 32 places higher. I thought we might start with Pearse Stadium yesterday. Roscommon eking out a 1-point win over Galway, 9 points to 8. So I did watch the highlights. I wasn't looking at the flags, but I'm going to deduce it was windy in Salt Hill yesterday if it was 9 points to 8 and the pitch was probably a bit heavy. But Peter, I suppose Roscommon is top, and we'll get to that in a minute, but perhaps the most significant news out of yesterday, or well, we don't quite know the news yet, but there's a lot of concern about Damien Comer. Seemed to fall awkwardly, suggesting a knee injury. People fearing the worst because we've had a few ACLs last week already. So fingers crossed it's not that. But I think Rob Finnerty's out for 4 to 6 weeks. Shane Walsh is in Australia. So Pork Joy straight away, he's without his starting full forward line from last year's All-Ireland final, which and not knowing how long people are going to be out for. Championship starts in 8 weeks. It's worrying times for the tribesmen, isn't it?
Absolutely. I left Castlebar last week thinking that Galway are in a good enough position. They've Walsh to come back in. I didn't realise Finnerty's injury was as severe, but they were a team with serious potential, and and they still do appear to be heading on the right track. But they can't afford to be without the likes of Damien Comer. He's so pivotal to what Galway want to play. We witnessed last week in Castlebar when things weren't going their way, trying to run the ball through. You can just kick it into Comer, and it doesn't matter what way it goes in. He'll make a brave attempt at one that normally he does. And he's very direct, and he can bring other players into the game. So, yes, Shane Walsh is definitely the key man when you speak about Galway. But, it's very hard to hold 2 marquee forwards. And as we witnessed, various stages last year when Walsh was quiet, Damien Comer really stepped up to the plate. All-Ireland final, that was in reverse. So, massive blow. Look, we hope it's not as severe as what a lot of people are talking. We'll know in the coming days, but best wishes to Damien, and I hope he makes it. Yeah. That it's not the dreaded cruciate.
Absolutely. Roy, there also obviously Liam Silks in New Zealand, and Kieran Molloy seems to be out for the season as well. There's always depth of talent in a county the size of Galway, and very strong as dual counties go. There's probably very few who could match them in terms of kind of playing numbers. But as we're seeing, like, games in Division 1 for the most part are very tight. They've got 1 point from 2 games now, and with the game so tight, as Peter says, if you're without your 3 starting inside forwards, those tight games are going to be hard to eke out.
Yeah, but I think it does give him the opportunity to. It's a forced opportunity now upon him to give players the chance to put their hands up and get maybe push into the starting 15. He's got no choice at this stage. I think a big worry for them yesterday really was just the second half fade again. I suppose they only scored 2 points in the second half. They went 8-6 up, I think it was, in the 50th minute, and then didn't score again. And I suppose when you take the likes of Comer out, as Peter correctly said, he's one of these bulwark forwards that you can kick it in ugly and he'll win it any which way you want. And when you have that, like in a similar vein to Conor Callaghan, it's a huge fill-up when you're trying to play a slightly defensive game, particularly this time of the year. Now you're taking him out of it, and it's going to be a massive mantle. I mean, if it is a serious injury, given the congested nature of the calendar now, the fact is, even if it's not a cruciate, it could, like, if it's some way anyway serious, it could be a month, 6 weeks, 2 months. And what that actually does is it knocks out an awful lot of your prep ahead of the championship too. So it could take an extra couple of weeks before you actually get the player back, even if you do, by the time he gets up to match fitness but look, these are the things that he's probably going to have to deal with. I think the congested nature of the calendar is going to force it upon teams to, put more depth into panels. I think what you're probably also looking at is the maybe the managers themselves might start looking, as we predicted, possibly, of taking their foot off a wee bit in these games, because if you're running the risk of an injury at this time of the year, it can really derail your season, especially if it's a key player. And I suppose the question that you might ask is, does Damien Comer even need to be playing at this time of the year? Would you be wrapping someone like him up in cotton wool, knowing that you're
hindsight?
Yeah, well, I mean, look,
yeah.
But hindsight is only going to be something that'll come at the end of this year, because, as I said, this is very much a guinea pig year, and teams are probably going to find out very quickly about what they need to do in terms of priorities, and that's probably a big conundrum now for a lot of managers, including Park Joyce.
I still think, Rory, it's a bit early to be resting your key players. If Galway had won their first 2 or 3 games and knew that they weren't going to be relegated,
and you took them away then.
But I think at this stage, be it a Tyrone or Galway, Mayo, you can't be going into the championship, into the provincial championship, on the back of being relegated. I think that'll be tough on the player, tough on morale, and that negativity seeps into a county. It can be hard to turn that around. So I think that's why, if you look at all the teams that have gone out so far, the teams are feeling their strongest teams. And bear in mind, in some cases, I think Roscommon are out in 8 weeks in the championship. So you need to be up and running pretty
It was
fast.
Interesting, Peter, to listen to Davy Burke after the match. He sounded, I'm a Leicester City fan, and the year they won the league, in about February, they were beating Manchester City in the league, and Claudio Ranieri had been asked about winning the league. He said, all we're interested in is getting to 40 points. That's all we're interested in, getting 40 points. So Davy Burke's now sitting top of Division 1, and pretty much after the match he said, it was great to win, but he said, we definitely need another 2 points to be safe. So you can see how he's thinking, and it's not the wrong way to think, because you said they're in championship in 8 weeks, so get to 6 points and relax a little.
Six mightn't be safe, by the way things are panning out in this division.
I think 6 would be safe. To you, Peter?
Well, I'm looking at who's going to be in the bottom. Monaghan are the team that's played 2 and have no points on the board. Galway will pick up points there in 1. Donegal, Mayo, Tyrone. Yeah, 6. I would say 6 should see you safe. But
you wouldn't be comfortable.
we're talking about resting players towards the end of the league. That there's a lot of those teams are going to be their last game could well determine if they spend next year in Division 1 or Division 2.
Absolutely. We'll move on. Galway are out next, I believe, against your own county, Peter, against Tyrone. The week off now. That was much improved yesterday, Peter. I think that starting Frank Burns was a big help and probably contributed to the fact your own son Darragh kind of turned in a very impressive performance. They looked a lot more comfortable in attack, a lot more fluid, kind of more comfortable in shot selection. Everything just seemed a lot better than last week, which is progress is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 points on the board was very important, and if Tyrone hadn't got that yesterday, they were very much looking at a very tough run-in. But both Frank Burns and Darren McCurry started, so that gave them more options up front. Frank was very forceful out around the middle, and whilst McCurry didn't score from play, he was making a lot of good runs. He was creating space that Darragh benefited from on a few occasions. So, and Tyrone were cohesive, which they weren't. I thought the last day against Roscommon, there was more pattern in their play, some great movement, and they were kicking the ball in. We got scores from long diagonal ball in, and that's what we need to do to vary our game plan. Now, the caveat with yesterday's result, it was a very poor Donegal performance. It was a performance that a lot of people were expecting from Donegal last week. Well, we got it this week, and there were signs yesterday that a lack of leadership. Once Patrick McGrath was held up and then he was forced to go off injured, what looked like a hamstring injury, that will be a serious blow to Donegal moving forward. They didn't need to lose him on the back of the other players that they've out injured. And okay, that they can bring in at least 4 or 5 other players, seasoned campaigners, and they're going to need those players if they're going to remain in Division 1.
Yeah, Rory, when you look at it, like Michael Langan, Kieran Thompson, Owen Bond Gallagher, Oisín Gallen, Ryan McHugh, hopefully not now McBrearty as well. That's a lot for Aidan O'Rourke and Paddy Carr to be dealing with, isn't it? That's a serious lack of as much talent as there is there's leadership and experience, which is probably what Donegal need now in the post Michael Murphy era.
Yeah, you'd hope that they get a few of those guys back fairly soon. I think they're going to need them. What they certainly didn't need was to be picking up more injuries, and I think it was a very disappointing performance. Now, I didn't see this game, but were you there, Peter?
Yeah.
So I mean, look, we can take Peter's word for it that it was, to only put 8 scores on the board. Generally speaking, Healy Park isn't the, when people say people don't like going there, I don't know if Tyrone's record there is as fearsome as other teams would have in a home advantage scenario. And I think, look, the big thing from Tyrone's perspective is there was a lot of hand-wringing and pearl clutching going on last week over the defeat to Roscommon, and you're probably going to see a lot of this happen in the league, where there'll be topsy-turvy performances. One week teams are very poor, and the next week, they flip that form on its head and get a couple of players back. The one interesting thing, just looking at the Tyrone starting 15, I didn't see a huge amount of new faces. It's a lot of the tried and trusted, and Darragh obviously chipped in with a couple of scores as well. So I'm sure that was pleasing for Peter. But I think like they kind of know they're 15, and if everybody is fit, well and able, Tyrone will have plenty to say yet.
I'd say there was 3 newcomers to the team that, well, compared to recent years. Cormac Quinn, half back, he scored a point with about 10 minutes ago. Niall Devlin was on the other wing. He was captain of our under-20s last year, and Cormac Monroe was full back. So I would say those 3 have added a bit of freshness and a different dynamic to the team. They're still finding their feet. They're all young lads on the back of successful Tyrone under-20s. So they're keeping a few of the more seasoned campaigners at bay at the minute. But many times have we spoken about the importance of having a strong panel moving forward with the league, provincial championships, and then the round robin. So but look, good start, or a good win for Tyrone, but I would have question marks over how much Donegal were really up for yesterday's performance.
To Boxit Athletic Grounds, Rory.
Quick,
It was as we predicted. Well, you don't need to be any kind of a football sage to predict that Mayo against Armagh is probably going to be an entertaining game of football.
Yeah.
That it was. Mayo fans very, very, very unhappy with how they kind of gave up the equaliser. They believe Rian O'Neill wasn't fouled with the last kind of free of the game. I don't know. What did you think? It looked like there wasn't intent, but
you could have easily given a free out for barging, or like it was one of those ones. One of the things I find very funny with Gaelic football is in situations like that when the whistle goes. And players
they don't know.
players from both teams turn and face the referee, and they're waiting for the signal, and whichever way he gives it, the team that wins it gives the old fist pump, and because you're kind of, it is in the lap of the gods. Didn't think Fergal Kelly had his best game yesterday. In
his defence, though, it was a fairly bananas kind of game of football.
Very hard game to referee. I think though a lot of these referees, which is I suppose it's worrying to a certain extent. I mean, I was told about 2 years ago that Joe McQuillan was, looking to
hang up his whistle,
hang up the whistle, but a lot of these referees are still on the scene, and the only explanation that you could probably draw is that there isn't just the quality coming through to replace them, and these guys have to stay on. But I think from Mayo's perspective, they just allowed the momentum to shift and gave Armagh that little bit of a window to kind of push on for those last few minutes.
Yeah,
I think it was a game that, given the fact that they had started so poorly, I mean, they were 8-4 down at one stage, managed to make the game competitive again, and then really for the first 20 minutes of that second half, absolutely owned it. And it was, I'd say Kevin would be a bit disappointed that they didn't come out with 2 points. I mean, it was a big Mayo contingent, an amazing atmosphere, without a doubt the best GA ground in the country, because it always looks full and it always has this rabid atmosphere to it. It's just a fantastic place, I'd say, to play. And it was a very entertaining game, very topsy-turvy, had a kind of fizzy pop nature to it at times as well. But look, I thought it was great stuff, even though lacked a bit of the kind of championship fervour that you might expect if these two teams were to meet in championship later in the year.
Yeah, Peter, he does have a fine head of hair for his age, Kevin McStay. I think he might have been pulling some of it out last night, because to be 5 points up with that length of time left, and to cough up a point
there for a minute with the head of hair. We'll not go down that road.
No, you and I don't need to have that discussion, Peter. It's okay.
Better having it on your face.
But 5 points.
Mikey,
5 points is bad, isn't it?
The point that Rory made about the intense atmosphere and the cauldron that's up there in the athletic grounds, that might explain Fergal Kelly's decision in the last few seconds.
It's home advantage for a reason.
He's not the first experienced referee to go up there and have difficulties, shall we say, but you've got to give kudos to Kieran McGeeney and his management. Before the ball was thrown in, tickets sold out. A few years ago, would many have predicted that he would have turned Armagh's fortunes around in the manner that he has. It's a brilliant place to play football. Ryan O'Donoghue alluded to that after. So what an atmosphere, and if players can perform in that sort of environment, then they will perform in Croke Park. So first of all, it was great to see. I thought it was played at a championship pace. I really thoroughly enjoyed watching the game. And in terms of Rian O'Neill, he did what any good forward would have done in those moments. He won his team a free to get a draw. So at everything, yes, plenty of mistakes on both sides, but both teams really went at it. And once again, if Mayo and Galway was a great game down in Castlebar, I think this surpassed it. And as I say, you'd want to be following Armagh or Mayo now for entertainment, that's for sure.
Absolutely. He hasn't sat on his laurels, Rory. Kieran McGeeney. There are a few changes there, and there's a few players who seem to be kind of a little bit reborn. Andy Murnan, on the edge of the square. I think proper long-standing Armagh fans are saying they can't remember the last time they saw him play that well. And Soupy Campbell, I won't say he's playing midfield, but he's playing out around midfield. And, you know, for a guy who for a stage last year was kind of, you know, benched, having been kind of their marquee player for the best part of a decade, he seems completely reborn. I know it's only 2 rounds into the league, but he looks like a different player. He looks to have way more energy. He looks to be a lot faster. So they seem like a team who, rather than being deflated from last year, they've really they seem re-energized. They seem like they're bouncing into 2023.
Yeah, they're definitely the farm team. And as you mentioned, look, I don't necessarily think there was any talk within Armagh, but we'll say outside the county, people might have suggested that given McGeeney's record, particularly in the Ulster Championship, that he might have been under a little bit of pressure last year. But obviously they turned all that around when they made it to a quarter-final that they could have snuck in the end. But they've definitely built, they've definitely pushed on. I mean, I was looking, they're starting forwards, all 5 of the 6 of them all scored. So you've a great spread now across the team. They play a very attractive brand of football. They're not afraid to kick it in long and lose those 50-50s. I think that's, for most Gaelic football followers, is a fantastic trait to have in a team, because it gives people, you know, that's exactly what people want to see. You know, they're not a possession-based team. They will mix it up. They can run it when they want to as well. I think all in Armagh are a very exciting team. I think the one area that you might be a small bit concerned with them historically, and maybe yesterday, they're fortunate enough maybe not to pick up a red as well, would be the area around discipline. But they do have to probably go and try and win an Ulster Championship. I think that would be a big thing from Armagh and a big statement. Regardless of what happens in this year's league, I think for them to go and win the Ulster Championship, I think would be a sign of a statement. And I think that's probably the big, I would assume that might be the big target for them in 23.
Briefly then, just a word on Kerry, and in particular Donald O'Sullivan. Scored 1-3, man of the match. First player from his club, Peter, to ever play senior football for Kerry. He's from a club called Kilgarvan. His club playing the novice championship.
Healy Ray country.
Yeah, so he's a junior B footballer. I know the Fossil lads are now up to intermediate, but when they started playing football for Kerry, they were also junior footballers. I think it's a waste of time anyone going down scouting the Kerry, the senior championship, Peter. I think all the best forwards are playing junior B football down in Kerry, and they're very proud of their divisional system now, because that guy wasn't even getting a game for East Kerry, and he's man of the match in an Allianz League match. It just shows the terrifying depth of talent that they seem to have at the moment in Kerry.
That's all we need is more inside forwards coming out of Kerry.
And a junior B football in Kerry.
Yeah. And of the 8 teams in Division 1, Kerry were the only team to hit the net yesterday, which is amazing when you consider the amount of forwards on display in a lot of counties. But they have a habit of doing that. They go for the jugular when they get the chance, and that trait's still very much evident. Monaghan were going down yesterday needing the points, believing that they had a great chance of getting one over in Kerry, because again it is a weakened Kerry side. But I think Jack O'Connor was disappointed leaving Donegal, and a few decisions went against them. So he appeared to have his troops well fired up. So that's a good one when you look at the team that they had out on paper. So look, Kerry's ticking along very nicely, and as you quite rightly say, when it comes to looking for men to get scores, they have them in abundance.
Absolutely do, Rory. And you do get the sense that, like we were talking about it here with Eamon, he's like, you know, Jack could be, you know, he wants wins and he wants these lads battling with each other, knowing that there might be 6 forwards there yesterday who were maybe fighting for one starting place come championship or whatever. Like you want to do the maths. You do get the feeling that some players maybe that suits them better than others. I get the impression Tony Brosnan, I think, might be feeling the pressure a little bit. He kind of snatched a couple of chances from play. I think he scored 4 frees, but you know, because he was kind of on the bubble last year as well, and now he's probably seen all these new lads coming in, and it's very high pressure environment for the second round of the league.
Darragh Roach, I thought, played really well again yesterday, you know, and he shows he's another one of these gets out in front, uses his body really well. He's accurate, he's aggressive, he's physical, he's got a good engine. So he's another one that's competing for a potential spot on that inside line. I mean, obviously Clifford is just going to go straight back in, David, that is, and then it's the case of who partners him in there.
Well, Paddy went on an 80-yard run and scored a goal yesterday, so that's a good sign.
Paddy was like Moses, the way he ran up the middle. It was like the parting of the Red Sea from a Monaghan perspective.
Peter, I never think you never played against a Monaghan defence that split like that, I'd say, for an 80-yard run. It was insane.
It was incredible.
Never. But look, they were good at chasing the game at that stage, and it's inevitable things will open up. But the last man you want to see coming onto the pitch when you're chasing a game is Paddy Clifford, and he certainly exploited the space.
Did indeed. Right, Division 2. We'll only deal with a couple of the games. We'll say fair play to Louth, who made life very, very difficult for Derry.
The last couple of minutes was an Niall Toner goal to really turn. Like, I mean, Louth were in a very good position with the game nearly.
And our prayers and thoughts are with Limerick, who have now had to play Derry and Dublin in the first 2 matches, and will hopefully get a nice week off now and lick their wounds. Now, 2 matches I want to focus on, obviously. Rory, not only the hurlers winning and beating the All-Ireland champions on Saturday, and you go down to Newbridge and the footballers hand Kildare an absolute wamping. It could be 1990 all over again, Rory.
I don't know. I think in the same way where I wouldn't have gotten too upset last week, even though I think it was definitely a game that they left after them. I wouldn't get too carried away either about yesterday. I think it's a big result insofar as I can't remember actually a league or championship the last time Cork actually managed to beat Kildare. They have a very poor record against them over the last number of years, but it was a really good win. I think it'll give them a bit of confidence. Like, they obviously have Dublin coming down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh now in 2 weeks' time, which will, I suppose, create a small bit more confidence within the group that they can actually go out and give Dublin a game. There'll probably be a big crowd there for that. I think from John Cleary's point of view, it's definitely progress. No goal conceded, no goal chance given up by all accounts, in comparison to last week where they were slightly more open. Maybe Newbridge suits this particular Cork team. The big open spaces of a Páirc Uí Chaoimh, I think, maybe actually played against them to a certain extent. Look, I don't know. I haven't seen this match, just going on reports in the paper, but I think it's a huge 2 points because after the defeat to Meath, you know, the morale probably would have taken a bit of a battering, and the fact now that they're up and running, I think it'll give them a chance. They should. My prediction at the start of the year that Cork would kind of finish mid-table in Division 2, and I think that's probably still the case.
For Kildare, Peter, 214 to 7 points. We'll add the caveat it's the league, etc. But I think we're all agreed no team in Division 2 is keeping the handbrake on here. Glenn Ryan and his dream team kind of came in last year as expected. You know, they're gonna, put the backbone back in Kildare football, a lot of fight and kind of a lot of pride, and we saw that at stages last year. But that'll be a hard result for him to swallow in front of a big crowd in Newbridge, and he doesn't hide his emotions in post-match interviews. He's done a couple of pretty snarky ones. I think poor Damien O'Mara just asked me, I say, have you can you put your finger on how that happened? He's no, we'll look into it.
He was honest.
Yeah, he's very honest.
Yeah, you need to put a bit of thought into your questions before you approach. Look, he's been honest. That's how disappointed he is. You put so much of your time and effort into getting the best out of the players in front of you, and for him to go out and to witness his players who have performed really well since he has come over. They were really competitive last year in Division 1, and I would say this is the first game in the league in a long time where they would have been going in thinking we should be winning this game with a few points to spare, and because they were in Division 1 last year, and that certainly wouldn't have been their mentality, whereas that was one game that they would have been very confident, I would have thought, going into it, because they very nearly beat Dublin in Croke Park last week. So pre-Glenn Ryan era, it was consistency was always the problem for Kildare. They could beat anybody on a given day, and yet they could turn around and lose heavily, and that appears to be their problem once again. So yes, he's a few players missing and whatnot. But I do believe that what they're sitting on no points after 2 games. They're in danger of not competing in the Sam Maguire moving forward. Not too many would have been suggesting that at the start of the league. So he will be certainly glad of this break coming up. I do think he has the personnel, get everybody back on board. They'll survive. They'll finish up mid-table, I believe. But it's Meath, I suppose. Everybody predicted in Division 2 that Dublin and Derry were the teams that would come out. That appears to be the case. But you have Meath tucked in there with them as well. Scored 7-22 in 2 games. So it's back to the old Meath in some regard, and in the 2 games they haven't conceded a goal. So attributes that you'd always that great Meath teams would have had were mean at the back and forwards that could score goals, and Colm appears to have brought that back into the side. So them and Dublin, them and Derry, brilliant games coming up in Division 2.
Rory, many an afternoon and evening spent probably having arguments with Colm O'Rourke, so you won't be surprised that his strident opinions have followed him onto the sideline. Interesting, wholly predictable in a way.
Did he use the word disgrace?
He possibly did. No, he said the Sigerson Cup was dealt a heavy blow to our team. Shane Walsh with a hamstring injury, Matt Costello having a hamstring injury, playing last Tuesday night after coming home from Cork. A long drive, a hard match, a very fast pitch. These are overuse injuries. This is disgraceful. The abuse of players with this Sigerson Cup, it needs to be put on at a different time of the year. Now, Seven Peter talking about this before we started recording. He's perfectly entitled to say that. He's also perfectly entitled to rest those players if he thought that they needed a rest. So inter-county managers will always put it back on the colleges to say, you're the ones who should not, you're the ones who should rest these guys midweek. We should have kind of carte blanche to use them every weekend. And this is a row as old as, well, the fixtures calendar.
You can see both sides. I mean, you have to bear in mind from the college's point of view, a lot of these guys are on scholarships. So they're probably necessarily say under contract, but there's a huge expectancy that they need to play. They need to play with their universities because of the bursaries involved. So, and I'd say from the players' point of view, the competitions themselves, which are brilliant competitions, they probably want to play. Now, the issue is they probably want to play inter-county as well. And I think from the administration's point of view, whether it's the higher education or the GA at Croke Park level, I think they've created a tug of war that it is probably going to have to be resolved, given how much under pressure a lot of managers are and the frenetic nature of the league. To have the 2 competitions crisscrossing across each other, I think isn't sustainable in the long term. You might get away with it for this year, maybe next year, but I think there will be a stage where there will have to shift. Somebody will have to blink, whether it's the leagues push forward by another month to create that space for higher education, or higher education comes back pre-Christmas. But I don't think I think the player welfare issue is a real one, and forcing players to make these kinds of decisions is not really fair on them. So somebody will have to blink eventually, I think.
Peter, this would be an issue, maybe not at this level, but like I guess from your work in colleges, etc., managing underage teams, this is a very important issue. Like this goes beyond 2 points for a county or for a Sigerson Cup team. This is about the welfare of young athletes. And as much as everybody says, oh, you'd much rather be playing games than training, there is a limit probably on how many games you should play a week, and 3 and 8 days on pitches at this time of the year against this level of opposition is probably, it's only going to lead to more injuries, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. I have a man in the house here in that predicament, whereby going up the road to Belfast to perform with Georgetown and coming back down for county training and county games. So Rory's right. Something has got to happen here. There's got to be a movement, and the reason it can't stay, a couple of reasons. With the split season now and the championship being moved forward, and the nature of the league, how it affects the championship, there's an increased importance in the National League now that has never been there before. So that's got a knock-on effect to managers. There's an increased pressure put on managers for their team to perform. So they're putting pressure on their players. In some cases, players have been asked during the week not to play for their university and Sigerson Cup. So right away, players are being put in a situation. Do I go against my county manager here? But I'm on a scholarship. I'm training with my friends here up at Sigerson, and I know how important the Sigerson and Fitzgibbon Cup is to. So I think the only answer, yes, you could push the National League back out a week or two, and it gets out of more inclement weather as well, which is not a bad thing. But I do believe Fitzgibbon and Sigerson are going to have to be moved prior to Christmas. And what it impacts then on is the All-Ireland stages of the club championship. But you're talking a very low percentage of players that would be involved in that. And I think if players are involved with the club, they'll take the hit. They'll just say, yeah, this is a once-off with my club in an All-Ireland semi-final or final. And the university are going to have to accept that, maybe that they may be without some players then. But to play it off in December, for example, I think the players would enjoy it more, have better opportunity to train and to play with the university. And it gives them more time with the county over the Christmas holidays and January to concentrate fully on the National League and their county team. And I don't think you'd have the situations happening that Colin alluded to yesterday.
Yeah, there's the flip side, I suppose, is that the lads involved with Sigerson and Fitzgibbon who don't play county will say is less time for us to prepare as a college team for the competition if we're only in college from September and we're playing in November or December. So that's the counter argument, but I suppose it's perhaps not as strong an argument as the one, because so many now are involved in inter-county, like the quality of these Sigerson and Fitzgibbon Cup teams. I know you've been going to a lot of matches, Rory. You're basically talking about probably 10 inter-county players out of every starting 15 at least, are you?
Oh, there would be. They're absolutely, and they're great competitions. I mean, they are fantastic competitions. As I said last week, there's almost a hint of the Railway Cup off them, because it's an opportunity for lads across county bounds to play with each other. And, you could actually see what the Railway Cup might have been back in the day, given the opportunity, we'll say, for instance, for Cork and Kerry lads to play football together, or for Tyrone, Armagh, Derry Down lads to play football together. So I think they're fabulous competitions played at a really high level. They need to be protected. They're an important part of the education process from the GA's perspective. And the GA need to be careful on this as well, because the universities will only take so much, like they invest quite a lot of money into these scholarships. They can redirect that elsewhere if they feel they're not getting a fair bang for their buck. And, there's an awful lot of Olympic sports that are constantly crying out for investment at university level. There's rugby sevens and there's all sorts now. So you have to be careful that you don't annoy the higher education to the extent that they decide to, not invest in the way that they feel is worth their while when the competitions become demeaned and devalued. And it's a tricky balance to strike.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we finished talking about football last week, talking about the Sigerson Cup, and now we finished it on Monday talking about it as well. So clearly it is an issue. Colin Rourke's brought it firmly into the limelight. Peter, we shall let you off, and we will talk to you again soon. No football next week, so we'll hopefully chat to you in the next fortnight or so. Take it easy. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Mikey. Red Roy.
He hits it, it's over the bar! Oh, holy Moses!
Okay, we're back, and we've been joined by Shane McGrath, who's back on the hurling weekend. How are you getting on, Shane?
Good, lads.
Good stuff. You were at two matches at the weekend, Shane. One was a contest, one less so. You were at Tipleash on Saturday night, and you were below in Dungarvan yesterday, yeah?
Yeah, look, as I said, like I was in Thurles. I wouldn't call it a match. And there was two teams there. It had all the ingredients for a match, but it was a non-contest. It was really, really, really poor stuff to watch from a Laois point of view, but from a Tip point of view, that's all they could do. And I suppose we could chat about it later. And I was down in Dungarvan yesterday. Fraher Field, I think they capped it at 3,500, and there was that there. Great atmosphere there now, first round of the league and everything, and got a thrill of a game, and know the debate, lads. I know listened to you last week there as well on the pod like that. You're wondering what does it mean, but I tell you now, what happened down in Cork Saturday night, what happened in Dungarvan yesterday, it was great to see. Whoever's out in the field are going to give it their all, and I think that's all we can really ask for from the league, to be honest.
Yeah, on Saturday night, we might as well start there, just to keep Rory happy. It was fantastic, Rory, to see the joy on the face of the Cork fans at full time, like, and rightly so. But I know this from last year, because Wexford beat Limerick in the first round last year, and the first defeat of Limerick in the league, in my experience, you can put great stock in, and the team who wins can take great value out of it. But every league match that Limerick kind of get through and maybe win, lose, etc., there's a little bit less stock put in each of them. So to be the first team to beat Cork, to beat Limerick in the year, it is special, and it did seem to be a fantastic atmosphere. And all I can think about is Kieran Joyce and how important he's going to be for Cork for the next 10 years. He's immense.
Like, we spoke about him last year, Mikey, when he first arrived on the scene. I mean, there had been a lot of talk about this lad for a good few years coming in, that he would effectively lock down centre back. And I don't know if Shane agrees. I still think centre back is the most important position in hurling. I think a good centre back is they're just worth their weight in gold, and to have somebody of his caliber, and he can mix it as well. I mean, he's a beautiful hurler, but he's well able to get stuck in. And to have somebody of his caliber now that's going to lock that position down for the next 10 years is a massive boost. I think from Cork's perspective on Saturday night, I think the one really interesting thing was how hard their forwards were working out of possession. I think that's a real hallmark of Pat Ryan's teams. I think that was maybe the biggest shift. And I think it was a satisfactory win, given the nature of it. They were 8 points down at half time to kind of come back. And Limerick played well as well. I mean, Garrod Hegarty was it's just picked up from where he left off. And a couple of the big players all played well. And they had, I think Limerick gave it socks. So I think Cork can take certain things from it without getting too carried away. Obviously, the big blot is the injury to Robbie O'Flynn. I think that looked serious. I'm sure we'll find out later this week, today, how serious it is. I think that's a devastating blow for Cork if it is as serious as it looked.
Yeah, we were talking about it in the football show as well, obviously, a Comer, etc. There's a few injuries we're waiting on. Back to Limerick for a second, Shane. It does seem perhaps John Kiley is tweaking his approach a little this year rather than leaving lads off entirely. He's asking the likes of Declan Hannon and Gerard Hegarty to play, 48 minutes, 57 minutes, kind of getting them in there, I suppose, and it's good for him to have, like, say, he's got young fellas like Colin Coughlin playing, like, to have them alongside Declan Hannon is of great benefit. And obviously he probably, perhaps, Kiley seems to be a man who's constantly experimenting to see, like, what best service, how best the league can serve him come the summer, etc. So he does seem to be tweaking things a little bit. So I'd imagine, with that in mind, Limerick probably will be slightly more competitive than they were last year in the league, which is not saying much, I suppose.
Yeah, they're definitely a bit ahead where they were last year, and Mikey, I think in regards, physical conditioning, training and stuff like that. Like, with all due respect to the Wexford lads last year, the Limerick boys they just seemed a bit more sluggish than what they did against Cork. I thought that was a really fast-paced game and all that. All that being said, I could name 10 lads that will probably maybe be on the starting Limerick Championship 15 who didn't feature too much to the right, such as the depth talent they have. I agree totally there what Rory said about centre back thing as well. Like Kieran Joyce, he's, I suppose you haven't had one maybe, Rory, since
Ronan Curran,
realistically, like, as in solid there the whole time for you. I suppose we had Conor Mahoney on our team, and Kilkenny boys nearly always had Brian Hogan, and Limerick have Declan Hannon, and you mentioned Declan Hannon, lads. I think Declan Hannon is actually getting better and better and better. I thought he was immense the other night. He is. If you could make a video of how to jab lift the ball well in a group with a short grip, it's Declan Hannon would be making the video for you. He's just so good at the simple things. And maybe for like, how do I say this now? For non-hurling people who aren't looking at the smaller things and only look at maybe who's getting the goals, who's getting the points, like, Declan Hannon is pivotal. Like, he is that quarterback thing for Limerick. It's the simple things he does. He looks up every time. I rarely ever see him get hooked or blocked down as well. He's just so good at finding that that yard of space either side. So look, I think the Limerick boys are well ahead where they were the other night. I suppose there's small things like Nicky Quaid is obviously massive to them. David McCarthy was in goals. David McCarthy has a lot of inter-county experience. Like he was involved in All Ireland under-21 teams and stuff like that. But even small things like he went short there in the second half, Rory, I think you remember, to Aaron Costello. They got turned over and Hoggy got a point out of it to bring him back. And I'm just, they're the small things that they'll be looking at that won't happen come championship. But look, I thought it was very entertaining. Like, I mean, was it 19,000 people down there? I think Pat Ryan is a very, very astute coach, very astute manager. He plays it nice and cool, even though all around we're losing their head, as they say.
Yep.
Like but he knows the importance of the victory at the same time, because they can go back training now. There'll be a savage buzz there at training. Probably get back tomorrow night. They're going up to Galway at the weekend, and there'll be great buzz there within the group that they're working hard. And I don't think there's any secret to the success, lads, in my opinion, that in the first half they just kind of stood off the Limerick lads. And I think their tackles went from, if I'm right in reading it somewhere there on Twitter, they went from 23 up to 41 in the second half. 23 in the first half, 41 in the second half. And like, I don't think there's any secret to the success, lads. They just worked harder. And because they worked harder, it created a bit more space for the lads inside. So, look, very, very, very good first round stuff, like serious stuff. I mean, I loved out Twitter there for some people for the maybe not the snarky comments, but the gas comments. And then someone said, congratulations to Cork on winning another All-Ireland final. What a victory for them. And sure, look, you love that. You love to see it. And I think, lads, look, Mikey, as I was saying in the article last week, we have to take the league for what it is. Don't be getting too hung up in it. Don't get too down. Don't get too low. But for that, take it as a great game. And hopefully we'll get another few great games. And eventually, towards the end of it, we'll start seeing what's going to be the championship teams like.
Yeah. Rory, we discussed him here in the preview on Thursday, Patrick Horgan, and this chip on his shoulder that we all thought he had, and including Jackie Tyrrell said he kind of thought he just looked a bit narky. Top scored 10 points, two or three from play. But as was highlighted on League Sunday last night with the game in the melting pot, he was back in midfield putting in hooks and blocks, which
never saw him do.
Never saw him do. So he does seem like a man on a mission, and maybe that's partly down to Pat Ryan, who's obviously saying there's nobody going to be hatching inside here, lads. We're taking on the Limerick approach now. There's we've got 15 defenders when we don't have the ball kind of idea.
Yeah, and I think like that. What's that cliche? It's tricky enough to teach an old dog new tricks, isn't it? And I suppose from Hoggy's point of view, look, he know better than anyone that the clock is ticking. And if he the one good thing from his perspective is he's probably in a panel of players. I don't think Cork have had as rich a panel of players as they've ever had for quite some time. They've got very, very good depth in the panel now. There's an awful lot of competition there. There's a lot of high quality. They will have a big say right across the year. Is this the year for them to go all the way? Who knows? There'll be plenty of other teams that'll have plenty to say on that front. But I think to buy into what Pat Ryan wants to do, I think he had no choice. And that will be hooking and blocking. It'll be the stuff that Hoggy probably didn't really have to do.
I don't know why he doesn't like it, because he uses a 40-inch one-stone hurl. There's never been a man better placed to do some hooking and blocking.
Yeah. But I suppose, look, you've probably played your entire career without having to, you're the man to stick the ball over the bar or into the back of the net. That's very difficult to change that mindset when you've been playing nearly 20 years into county hurling. From minor all the ways up, and it's a big mindset shift. But I suppose, look, if he wants his place in the team, he's going to have to do these things. And you saw it the other night when they did that, particularly in the second half, as Shane mentioned. They kind of got in amongst Limerick, and I suppose the result spoke for itself in the end.
Yeah, it was a great game, and it was a great atmosphere.
It was a brilliant game, and a fantastic atmosphere. Actually, it had a massive crowd, which is great.
Yeah.
Do you think Rory or Mikey? Sorry, I just done one thing there. Like, not spend too long talking about Cork because we don't want to give him too much airtime.
No.
Like
Rory's already predicted they're going to win the All Ireland.
No, the double is on. The double is on.
I think there's a look. I know it's mentioned. Hoggy mentioned it with maybe previous management and stuff like that. But for me, the other night, Conor Lahan is getting taken off under previous managements, right? In my opinion, now, because he was in it and then he went out for a long period. But I think he was left on, and maybe that, whether that's a statement from Pat Ryan saying, you know what, I trust you that when it comes down to it, you're going to do it. And again, early doors, but still, he got that point to draw the game for them, you know, in true Conor Lehane fashion. So, like, maybe they're going to develop this trust thing as well, to know that as a player, that if you miss the first 2 or 3 balls, you're looking out over your shoulder, over to the sideline, and say, the next number that goes up is probably going to be mine now, because they just don't trust me enough. And maybe that's what they're going to get out of the league more so than anything, is this trust to say, you know what, you're the starting 15, we're going to give you every chance, but have to understand that you'll have to be in the top 10 performers to finish out the game, because we 5 guys ready to come in and finish it off. Like, so if they get that, and I that's what I noticed. One thing about Lehane the other night was, he was left on, and you know what? He got that point to draw him, and I think that'll be a big thing for him going forward. Like,
yeah, going down to Dungarvan then, Shane, match you were at yesterday. Another clinker by the sounds of things, like very competitive, which you could you know, you can kind of take for the fact, was there 3 or 4 penalties with 2 sendings off. These two teams,
a black card.
They tend to rub up against each other, don't they? Waterford and Dublin. There's something about it, even before the change of managers. It's a fixture that kind of tends to get a little bit hot and heavy. But it would be unfair to describe it as kind of a battle or a war of attrition. I think, Shane, it sounded like it was a pretty high quality game, and Dublin showed a lot of spirit, because they went down early and kind of came back into it and gave Waterford plenty by the sounds of it.
Yeah, look, they did, and there was a great atmosphere down there. It was a really nice day, and I have to say kudos to everyone involved with the pitch down there. One of the last times I was down there, I would have seen it, was the time Lochmore played Ballygunner down there, the year's previous club championship, and the field, it wasn't in good nick or whatever, but they've done an awful lot of work down there, and anyone that was there yesterday will see the field was absolutely immaculate. So credit to everyone down there. Like, it was a serious start by Waterford. What they did simply, Mikey, was they just ran at Dublin, and Dublin just, it took them a while to find their feet. And in particular, when Paddy Doyle got black carded, Waterford actually scored 1-4 in that 10 minutes while he was black carded. But you know what? He came back on the field, and he did a man marking job on Stephen Bennett. And while Stephen Bennett scored 2-7, he didn't score from play. And he just followed him everywhere, and he did a great job on him. Like, you know, for Paddy Doyle's a relatively young guy, he's relatively unknown in the hurling world, but did a great job on him. But like, Dublin did, when Paddy Doyle came back on, they just went man for man. Like, there was no like extra defender, because whatever breeze was there, Waterford had in the first half, suited him down to the ground. And what happened was, it allowed the likes of Cian O'Sullivan to get a bit of help up front, which he wasn't getting, because Jack Fagan was mopping up the world of ball in the first half, playing that kind of sweeper role. And Cian O'Sullivan banged in 2 goals. And then he had to go off at half time injured. Ronan Hayes came on. He had to go off injured. It was just nearly a curse to come on for that full forward position there for Dublin yesterday, because everyone that came on was nearly getting injured. Alex Considine got hit his shoulder by Austin Deason, lads, and he will be feeling it today. A fair shoulder, but like Ozzy, he's gone big. He's gone very strong. I'd say these guys will get a lot leaner come championship, but look, it was a very entertaining game. There was mayhem, Mikey. Like, I mean, no one even knew. The Watford, the WLR lads who side us, they had no idea why Jack Fagan was after getting red carded. They thought he was being substituted. But I think what happened was he got a yellow, and he got the black card, and as a result, he got the red card for the yellow and the black card. But he gave away the penalty. So look, it was absolute mayhem, like, down there. But it's a great atmosphere, and Davy getting involved, and Micheál Donoghue and Francie Ford and Noel Larkin, they were all getting involved. And geez, you had to check the calendar there to make sure that it was February the 5th and not in May. Like, so it was brilliant. And all the public were there, and the kids that were there, they really enjoyed it. So look, again, I have to stress, you take it for what it is. It was a very, very entertaining game. Both of them made the world of mistakes. Who will be happier coming out of it? I think they'll both be happy, because Micheál Donoghue they were 8 points down, I think, at one stage, 1-5 2 points. He would have bit the hand off you for a draw. And the other side of it is, if you told Davy you'll be down to 13 men, but you'll still get something out of it, I think they'll both take a lot out of it. And look, I have to say, lads, Ozzy, it's been a lot said about him and everything. He came on yesterday, showed his class. First ball he got straight over the bar. There was a nice breeze there yesterday. The smart slitter was dropped short 8 times, lads, just to let you know, against the breeze. So whether they're after making it a bit heavier, I don't know. But Ozzy and Desi Hutchison they showed their class and they came on. Other side in, Donald Burke. You know, lads, we all know he's a great free taker, right? But taking a penalty is completely a different skill. And he just is at his ease doing them as well. So they're going to need someone to give him a hand. And yesterday, in fairness, Keane Boland did that. 3 points for play, won the penalty. So look, I think they'll both be happy out with it, lads. Waterford have Laois next week. I think that's just how much you're going to beat them by. Work on your score difference there, to be honest. And I know that the Dublin lads are welcoming Antrim to town, and like Antrim, I know they lost by 6 points, but getting the Dunley boys back first day out.
They looked impressive now. I know I only watched the highlights, but they were well in that match.
Yeah, they were. And talking to people, some of the people that were there at Antrim people, and they said they just weren't clinical enough. I said first day back for the Dunley boys, so they'll be a bit rusty, but they had to get their first game back. But I tell you, lads, it's like the crowds that are going to Corrigan Park now. And look, he's my former teammate, a good friend of mine, Darren Gleeson. Since he's gone up there, like I was talking to someone from Antrim, from Donovan Rossa, and he told me before they came, like they might get 200 or 300 people at Corrigan Park, and now it's Corrigan Park is a sellout because of the appetite for hurling, the structures that are in place, underage, under 20, seniors, and I have to say, there's no more this kind of moral victories. It's either they're good enough or they're not now anymore. It's no like, we only lost by 3 or 4 points, Kilkenny, sure they're a hurling stronghold. It's not that anymore. Everyone's going up there. There's no more surprise element with going up to play Antrim. And it's just to see how are they going to travel now. We all know what they're like at Corrigan Park. If they can travel well, it'll be good for them. But as regards Antrim, Westmeath, Laois lads, Antrim are way ahead, and Westmeath and Laois are. I just don't know what to if they use it as some kind of motivator, stick it up on the wall, but they're just not in good places at the moment.
Just a word, since we were discussing it there, Rory, Kilkenny, again, we're working off the highlights, and he was highlighted last night, Billy Drennan, who Jackie mentioned on Thursday. Definitely, one for the, not for the future, one for the now. But it was interesting to see, Kilkenny under new management for the first time in 25 years. Maybe again it was just the highlights that the subs picked, but there seemed to be quite a few short puckouts from Kilkenny, which is not, I know we were getting a little bit of it last couple of years, but it seemed to be, again, it's hard to tell from the highlights, but there did seem to be quite a few, so a little bit of change of foot.
I think, but they had to as well. I suppose it's just kind of moving with the times. I don't think you're going to see a drastic change of culture. I think most teams have to mix the game up. I think you go short when it's on, but you also have to keep your opponent guessing. And if you can land 1 or 2 down, I mean, I noticed it, particularly in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Saturday night, it was noticeable as well, in that both teams, would let the ball into the half forward line directly from a puck out, and if it broke, you were looking to try and scramble. I think Kilkenny will do the exact same. They will mix the game up, and I think that's modern hurling. You can't just be a short ball team or a long ball. I think it's a mix of both, and I think Derek Ling is a very smart fella, and he will see, like, the reality from a Kilkenny perspective is there's never going to be a deficit in terms of ability or skills or basics on how to play the game of hurling. So implementing different tactics and different types of game plans should be, reasonably easy to get across to, I'd say what I can only imagine is a fairly receptive and captive audience. And you've got a lot of young lads now that probably would have played under Derek when he was manager of the under-20s, and he'll get a tune out of him. I mean, they've possibly found another big strapping ball winning forward who can score, and when TJ and the lads come back, I think we'll be hearing plenty from Kilkenny yet.
Yeah. A quick word on Clare, because Shane, I can tell you're not putting too much stock in the opposition. They beat Westmeath 427 to 14 points. It is interesting though when you just kind of read it. They only had 8 players who played against Kilkenny in the semi-final last year. Debuts for Adam Hogan, Jack Kerr and Brandon O'Connell. And then almost more encouraging is the fact that 3 lads who didn't play any championship last year, Aidan McCarthy 10 points, Davy Conroy 5 points, and Sedna Murray got a point, and then you got Mark Rogers as well getting a couple of goals. And obviously they're resting a fair few players. It was Westmeath, but I suppose a lot of people Rory was wondering last week just kind of how Clare would kind of come back after last year, because it was so promising in the Munster Championship and then kind of ended in a slightly demoralising way. One way to regenerate, I suppose, is to bring in new players or lads who missed out on last year, which Brian Lohan is able to do. So they'll be a very interesting proposition come the Munster Championship, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. And no more so, the Cork have a really strong group. I think Clare have a seriously strong group if they keep them all fit. Like, if you take
That was the
David
problem
Fitzgerald-
last year,
Yeah, like, but even that day, I was on duty that day last year, the All-Ireland semi-final, and when Kilkenny absolutely annihilated them. Like, but I mean, before that match, people have to realise John Conlon came out, and unless our Lord actually came down and tried to cure his injury, you know, and everyone knew he wasn't going to play the game. He was limping around like. Tony Kelly, supposedly he wasn't at full hill for that game either. You know, now everyone knows the job Mikey Butler did in him, and absolutely brilliant job. But from my understanding, is Tony Kelly was actually sick going into that game. But I think what Brian Lohan has now is at the moment, and if he can keep them all fit, like is a really strong panel where the over reliance maybe on Tony, it just can't be as much as it is, because look, if it is, and if he's not at full tilt, no more so maybe than Donald Burke's not at full tilt for Dublin. Where else do you look for? Because you look around, you say, look, I've been doing it all year, someone else needs to do it now. But then maybe the other lads might go, I actually don't know what to do, because I'm always looking at you to do it. So I think what you have now is, like, say, Aidan McCarthy, massive to get him back. Massive, like. Mark Rogers, he's a serious talent. Like, he scored one of the goals yesterday. If you get a chance to watch it, lads, on highlights or clips or something, some sort of a stream, absolute pearler of a goal. Like, so there's two guys there. David Fitzgerald is just popping points over for fun there at the moment. We're normally associating him as playing in the backs, but he's at that midfield half forward line. So there's three guys there straight away that are going to be a massive help up at the forward line. Peter Duggan back again, as in again a full good pre-season under his belt, really hungry. He'll be a massive push on. And like, Lohan is just building a panel. If you keep them all fit, lads, I think they're going to take serious beating. What's very interesting for me is they're going into the Gaelic grounds now next weekend in the league, and I just wonder, is Brian Lohan going to say, I'm going to trust everyone who played the Westmeath game, I'm going to give you another go to see how you're going to do it, or is he going to say, right, we targeted this from the fixtures, let's go at this now and see what Limerick come back with. So I think team selection is massive as well, to see the intent from the managers as what they really want to get out of it. Do they want to test lads? What better test in the Gaelic grounds against Limerick after losing their first game? Or do they want to say, right, here's a right going out for maybe playing 8 or 9 or maybe 10 of my championship team to see how they get on? If we win, we win, so be it. If we don't. So look, I just think team selection is massive. But yeah, Clare, brilliant panel at the moment. And Lohan will be absolutely thrilled that all of them are fit and raring for road. So, I look, lads, it's all this is building up to. The big show is coming in 3 months' time.
Yeah.
Whichever team can keep all their best players ready to go after the league and after whatever they're doing, they'll have a massive chance. Like, and Clare have to be one of them.
Yeah. We'll move on. We'll finish up now in a minute. But Rory, I better mention that the Wexford and Galway on Saturday evening. Wexford never caught fire in the second half. The stand caught fire before the match started, but Wexford never caught fire in the second half. I'm quite sure. I think it was a generator, I think is what I've seen reported. But anyway, everyone evacuated and everyone let back in. The match is delayed a bit. 10 points all at half time. Galway run out 23 points to 15 winners, which is just a kind of a depressing state of affairs, especially since I missed most of the first half and only got to watch the second half. So I got the wrong half.
Yeah, impressive from Galway, and they've again added a couple of extra strings to the bow. They've a couple of new players coming in there that will add a bit more competition and a small bit more depth. Disappointing for Wexford. Brilliant, like great to see lights finally unveiled in Wexford Park. I think it'll make a huge difference, and massive crowd down there. Played okay in the first half, probably should have had a few more scores on the board. Free taking, I think the lads mentioned it last night, is definitely an issue. They can't reach him back fast enough, and they need to certainly sort that side of it out. But I think Galway were the story, really. I think they went down and like they just played some sparkling hurling at times, and good value for their win. I think it's it gives Henry now a good bit of momentum heading into the rest of the league.
Yeah, I'd almost think, Shane, that Galway are one team who could do without having a particularly good league. I don't know why. I just have a feeling that if they could go into the Leinster Championship in any way under the radar, for some reason, I think it would kind of suit them with kind of a few new players, etc. Kind of be something of an unknown quantity as much as you can be in such a small pool as the top tier hurling. But I have a feeling Henry Shefflin kind of, he knows himself and he knows his players pretty well, I would say, even now, even with the amount of players he's tried out. I don't know what you think. I think Henry might be taking the football league approach and kind of get 2 or 3 or 4 wins early on, and then kind of 3 wins and then kind of coast or whatever, because I don't see them as a team who particularly need to win the league. I think they're desperate to win a Leinster Championship and get straight into that All-Ireland semi-final and then see what happens.
Yeah, I actually think Galway have a great chance of winning the league. I think they could go.
Oh, if they wanted to, they could. I'm just wondering, do they want to?
Yeah, if it's set up, I don't know. I think they have a manager there who won leagues. Now it's obviously a totally different hurling championship. When they were winning the leagues and to win now is like, I think, there's 2 games in Leinster, right, that Galway, will look at, right. They'll really want to beat Kilkenny and they really want to beat Wexford, right. Well, they want to win them all, really, but I mean,
they're those they have to think about.
They're right, and it depends how Dublin come along. But I mean, realistically, like, for the Antrim and Westmeath games, I think they're actually their 3rd and 4th game as well in Leinster for Galway, right? So like they could look at that block and go like, we might have a chance here of maybe not going full tilt at this. We could have 2 victories got. So I think that if there is a team set up like that could go on, that the schedule might suit them, etc., etc. I think Galway are going to go at this and go all out at this. It's Henry's 2nd year. I think about winning and momentum and the confidence is going to bring the group, and he's trying out new guys there. Like Eamon O'Shea's son is there, full forward lads, and he's got really strong. He himself and Billy Drennan. I just think that they're coming into that mold now. Like, Billy Drennan is gone absolutely huge. He must have been just eating weights there over the winter, and he has put on size. Like, and Donal O'Shea is the same. Like, he's bulked up now as well. He knows if I'm not strong enough to win my own ball, I'm not going to be picked. And both of those guys have bulked up. So I think Galway are going to go at this. Like, I think that I actually fancy them to win the league, to be honest, Mikey. And and if there was a team in Munster that I fancy who could go all out at it, it would be Cork, because they're not out in the first round. Like, they have that extra, that window that could allow them maybe an extra break that other teams are maybe don't, in inverted commas, want to get to the league final because you're out 2 weeks later. But Cork are actually off for the first week, so they have a 3-week break, and it might allow them maybe to go at this hard. So I know you're asking the lads last week who they think going to win the league. I actually think Galway are my team to win the league, and I think that they will go all out at this to try and do that, Mikey.
Yeah, I gave your crowd the kiss of death, so we'll wait and see. That's interesting what Shane says, Roy, about Donal O'Shea, because Galway have a very, 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 very particular brand of inside forward, shall we say. Bulls of men who are expected to be able to carry a couple of defenders on their back and score a goal. That's kind of, and God bless it, they're fantastic to watch, but it is, you don't see Henry Shefflin turning away from that style of forward, shall we say.
Henry was well Henry was well able to do that himself, in fairness. Yeah. But it was I think the other thing that struck me about it, and it was just they're in very good physical condition as well from a Galway perspective for this time of the year. They're in incredible nick. I mean, I know that seems to be a theme across all the intercounty teams, particularly this season, given the long off season that we've had now, and I suppose the amount of work that's probably gone on in preparation for this. And I think that's like I think Shane just mentioned there, the physical nature of hurling, modern intercounty hurling now, your ability to actually be able to compete and that physical side of it is absolutely essential. And that probably leads lads to spending a lot more time in the gym and getting themselves up to that kind of, that level and ability to compete. I think it's going to be, I think Galway have a lot of depth. Some like so very good win for them, and they're building.
Yeah. Finally, then, just a quick word, Shane, on Tipperary, as you were there. And I know you're not putting any stock in the opponent, but I think for people from the outside looking in, I suppose the most notable thing was, granted it was Laois, but Tipperary scored 232 and Jason Ford never saw any action. So that has to be encouraging given the dependence that we've seen in the last year or so on Jason Ford.
Yeah, and come here, lads. Jason Ford I talk about lads in good condition. This guy is in serious condition. He's doing some hurling at the moment, and I think if Tipper to be successful, he will be central to that. He's one of the best ball strikers in the game. He's playing with self-confidence at the moment that maybe we haven't seen from him in a couple of years. You know, he was brilliant against Cork, I thought, down in Páirc Uí Rinn. He came on against Clare lads inside the Munster League. He nailed, I think, 1-3, 1-4 in the space of a few minutes. So that he's going to be central, he's going to be key. Look, very, very quickly, Mikey. It was good stuff from Tip. What did they do well? They worked hard, they worked the ball well. The guy in the best position got the ball, and they were given a quality ball inside to the lads. What I took most out of it was the new guys settled in very well. Johnny Ryan, corner back. You know, Keane O'Dwyer in half forward line. Garrod O'Connor is a bit of an unknown to outside Tipperary maybe, but he's hurling really well inside the colleges, and Sean Ryan from Tipperary here as well. They all did really well, so that's massive. There's 4 new guys who've got a bit of a taste for competitive stuff. Scored 2-32. What could they say? What can you really say? Like, I mean, did 18 wides, they might pick on that maybe. The fact that Laois scored 11 points in the second half, but there's very, very little that's, you know, that they could say was wrong. Jake Morris came on and scored 1-2. He might have been only on the field less than for 10 minutes or so. So I'll just show you the kind of game that it was. Shamey Kennedy up in the forwards, lads. You know, you would be used to seeing him at 5 or 7, but he actually does a lot of his club hurling in the half forward line. He scored 1-1, could have got 1-3, 1-4. The Bonner, you know, didn't score, but I suppose if the GA was like Premier League and assists, there was a lot of weight on assists. The Bonner would be up there. He's like Kevin De Bruyne for Tipperary. So, and one other guy, and look, there's loads of good performances. Connor Statham was brilliant in the second half. Like, scored 3 in the first half, scored 3 points per play. Had to go off with an injury in the second half, and it didn't look good. So more so than Robbie O'Flynn. It wasn't a hit as such. It seems like a hamstring or a knee or something. So hopefully he'll be okay. Yeah. And we have a full back, lads, in Mikey Breen, where he's been midfield and half forward line. They've played him every match this year, full back, challenge games, Munster League, and the other day, and he has been flawless so far. He's physical. He's got that Dan Morrissey type presence. He's a good hurler. He's got a head up hurling. So I think they're going to stick with him there, and fair play to them. And I hope he plays every league match full back to give him a chance to get ready for championship. On the Laois side, lads, look, there's some serious soul searching to do. I'll tell you, their half back line scored more from play than nearly all their forwards did, because they just no plan. The quality ball going in was poor. The movement up front is poor. 4 of their starting forwards got taken off. I just don't know. There's massive soul searching to be done there in the Laois group at the moment, and I mean they're playing Waterford now next weekend, and they got beat by 20 points, and I think they'll have to be a big sit down, or maybe they know what they're doing. Maybe they're training ferociously hard, but I tell you, it's just, it does not look good. They're worlds apart there the other night, you know. But look, from a Tip point of view, they worked hard, got a lot of guys on the pitch, and Liam Cahill will be delighted now. And look, lads, it'll be a dinger. It'll be a dinger next weekend, typical Kenny. Regardless of league or anything, it just goes out the window. When United play Liverpool, when Ireland play England in the rugby, this is typical Kenny. Form goes out the window, down in Nolan Park. And I tell you what, lads, Tip will be going down there. Now, Liam Cahill might say it or mention, we are going down there to try and win, because we are sick of losing to Kilkenny down in Nolan Park. We never ever we just can't seem to get over the line down there, whatever it is about it. But I just think that they'll go out there and he'll go hard at it. He might start the same 15, but he'll be sending out a message to all of them to say, here's your chance now to prove to me, do we really want to play for Tip, and can you do it when there's a bit of pressure there? So as regards as big games go, Tip Kilkenny in Nolan Park, there'll be a massive crowd there. So I think Cahill will be really aiming to get a victory here on Sunday.
Shane, I think
very clean, obviously.
Yeah, the GA are going to have to hire you as their Allianz Hurling League hype man, I think. El
Clásico.
Genuinely, lads, if you're ever down, like, you know, at Tip Kilkenny in Nolan Park, the atmosphere is there. The last time I was there, we won the All-Ireland minor final, and it was packed. But I don't see the same crowd, but I see the same kind of atmosphere there. I think that'll be the game of the weekend next weekend, in my opinion, and hopefully people go at it, like, you know.
I look forward to it. I'm going to keep a close eye on Mikey Breen now, because I do love a reinvention of a hurler or a footballer. I love it when a guy just gets a completely new position. I love that.
Oh, and Mikey, you're talking about beast of men. This man is something. Yeah. But look, you know what? He's got the hurling to back it up, and he's doing everything right so far. So hopefully, you know, I'd love to see him play all the games there for the league. Like,
good stuff. All right, Shane, thank you very much. Rory, thank you. Myself and Rory will be back on Thursday to preview a hurling only weekend. Half day first. All right, lads, thanks very much, and we'll chat to you then. Good luck. Bye.
Cheers, guys. Crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it! It's over the bar! Oh! Holy Moses!